Is this legal? How much money do you net? If I only had $100 for marketing, what would I do with it? We're going to go through the top questions that the wholesalers don't answer. So let's get into it. Number one, what is your cash flow like? Here's the cash flow for an entire year of my wholesaling business, and you can see that it fluctuates very widely. It goes from anywhere from $60,000 in a month to $0. This is just an example for 1 year of wholesaling, but it just should give you an idea of the kind of inconsistent cash flow that you can still have. Granted, you're still making money, but it tends to be a bit stressful because you don't know how much you're going to make every single month. Good deals fall apart, new deals come in, and that's one of the downsides of the wholesaling model. Why would a seller want to sell to a wholesaler? Well, good question. Surprisingly, price isn't always the most important thing for a homeowner to get. There's different ways to provide value to someone selling their home. Price is obviously the most traditional and most important one, but speed and ease of transaction is important for people. Sometimes liquidity is more important than getting as much money as possible. They just need as much money as they can get very quickly. So speed is more important than the amount. As long as they get a certain amount that they're happy, whether it's to pay like very short-term medical bills or to pay like their home's getting foreclosed on or they're moving and they need something fast is often one. And the other one is convenience. So stress, especially if the property was inherited by like, let's say 4 heirs. It's not, they're splitting the money so much. Oftentimes they're not getting a ton of money anyway, and it's just important for them to be done with it. Home selling can be a very stressful process. So oftentimes people just want easy more than the maximum amount of money they could possibly get. Selling to a wholesaler or a real estate investor, they're getting very fast cash and a very easy transaction. And that is a great deal for a lot of home sellers. Is this legal? Yes, but it definitely skirts the line of fraud. If you don't tell the homeowner what you're doing and what your intentions are, if you have no intentions of closing on the property, if you can't close on the property, and you don't tell them what you're doing, then if it was put in front of a judge, even if you're putting and/or signs or having some type of escape clause in the contract, you're still misrepresenting what you're doing to the property. So that's why I always say just be 100% upfront with the seller. Or you can use an option contract. Actually represents better than a purchase contract what a wholesaler's intention is. The reason people don't use option contracts is because you actually have to put money down for it to be legal. So you have to give the seller money to get the right, to get the option to buy their property, right? Works the same in the stock market. You pay them for the option to buy their property. And that's why people don't like to do it. How much money do you net? My profit margin was around 30% when I grossed like 180K. I think I made around $60,000. Granted, I had too many expenses that year. I was paying too many people to I had a VA handling phone calls, and then I had another person who would qualify them a second time, and I was paying too much in software. I think if you're just hustling and you're getting deals for free and cold calling and driving for dollars, your profit margin should probably be around 60 to 70% of your income. Now, these big wholesaling companies that are doing $1 million in revenue plus, it's not uncommon to see profit margins from 10 to 20%. So for every $1 million they make, they're only taking home $100,000 to $200,000. All right, next question. How long is it going to take to get your first deal? Well, I surveyed over 100 wholesalers. On average, it can take 6 months from the time they put money out to when they actually get paid the money back from closing. It's up to 9 months, actually. And if you're flipping, it could be even more. So this isn't just for beginners who don't know what they're doing. It tends to be whether you're a beginner or a pro. Expect at least 6 months from the time you put out your marketing dollars to when you actually get paid. That's why it's important to manage your cash flow appropriately. And if you're doing wholesaling month after month after month, and you're putting out money for marketing, make sure that you can afford to put out marketing for 6 months until you get your money back. Right? It's very important. That's what causes a lot of wholesalers to go out of business because they don't understand how to manage their cash flow. Goes into the next question. How do you get money for an earnest money deposit? Now, typically the EMD, as they say, is only $100 or so. Now, some sellers, especially savvy sellers, they're going to want $1,000, $5,000 or $10,000, right? And if you want to do those deals, I'd say find a partner with that one, find a buyer who can put the money up front, let them handle everything, and then you can work it out that way. But ultimately, if you don't have the money for an earnest money deposit, you probably shouldn't be wholesaling. You should have at least $100 to put down. I mean, we're putting a purchase contract down on a property. If you're not willing to risk $100, if you're not confident enough in your ability to find a buyer and confidently evaluate the property, then you're not ready to be in wholesaling yet. Go find a mentor or partner to work with in the beginning. All right, next question. What if you can't find a buyer? Then you have a couple options. You go back to the seller and renegotiate the price. You can tell them, hey, I thought I could find a partner at this price. I couldn't, so we need to either lower the price or you cancel the contract with them. And that's why it's important that you're honest with the seller up front. So this should not be an out of the blue thing. They should already have an expectation that this might happen when then they agreed to work with you if your plan is just to strictly wholesale. So that's why it's important to be upfront, because if you don't find a buyer, which does happen, you need to go back. You didn't pull the rug out from under them. They didn't already invest into another property or something. They understand the risk they're taking by working with you. Or you go back to them, and what I always try to do, honestly, no matter what, I always get an offer on the property. Even if it's lower than what will make the deal work, always get an offer, because then you can go back to the seller and say, hey, look, I couldn't do it at $200,000, but I reached out to my entire network and the market showed me that we're going to be at about $180,000 for this property. So you don't have to take it. That's not what we agreed to, but I'm just letting you know I did the legwork for you. This is where we're going to be. And then the seller can then make a more educated decision, and you still provided them with value, with information. You still save them time from having to go hunt a bunch of different offers. You kind of let them know, hey, look, the expectations on this property were a bit off, right? And then they can decide, hey, they trust you and they want to go with you, or they don't, right? And then you're on to the next deal. All right, next question. Why do deals fall apart? Well, usually deals fall apart for one of two things. Most common one is title issues. So when there's a judgment, back taxes, or a mortgage is greater than we thought on the property, that's the number one deal killer 100% of the time. That's why it's important you do title up front. That's why the buyer's always going to say, hey, we need to do the title, we need to do the title, we need to do the title. Second reason is the buyer could end up talking to the seller somehow, or the seller could find out that you're wholesaling the property, and that can kill the deal. That's why it's important to be honest with the seller up front of what you're doing, so there's no surprises at the closing table. The closing day should not be a stressful day. You should not be trying to hide anything. It should be 100% set in stone and just a formality. Another reason is property survey line. If the buyer does a survey on the property and the property lines are different than what you expected or what everyone thought, and depending on what the buyer's renovation plan is, I've seen that's killed a handful of my deals. Obviously, that will depend on the market and what the deal is there. If I only had $100 for marketing, what would I do with it? Honestly, I would use it for gas and go to my local networking events for real estate investment, and I would meet buyers, meet wholesalers, and try to partner up with them. Try to find a mentor, try to do some joint venture deals. If I had $1,000, I would hire a virtual assistant, probably at $10 an hour, which is an expensive, good quality virtual assistant, and I would have that VA go scour the internet, look for buyers, look for other wholesalers, and start building a list of wholesalers in your market and a list of buyers in your market, and then reach out to those wholesalers and say, hey, look, do you have any deals that you can't move? I have a great, huge buyers list. Let's partner up, and then you can send their deal to your buyers list and either get a percentage of the fee or get a fee on top of it if you can get more money than they wanted. So it really depends, but definitely when you're getting started, the easiest way to get your first deal is to partner up with local investors. And that's it. All right, next question. Does direct mail still work? Yes, all of the marketing channels work. Facebook ads, Google ads, direct mail, cold calling, door knocking, bandit signs, all of them work. It just depends on how competitive it is in your market for each channel. Marketing and wholesaling tends to go in waves, where like direct mail was the big thing 10 years ago. Everyone was doing direct mail, and because everyone was doing it, it got saturated. So everyone started doing cold calling. Everyone does cold calling. Now cold calling is harder. And then people start doing Google ads, and eventually Google ads will be too hard, and people are doing SEO, and then SEO gets too hard. So it's a cycle. The important thing is to remember, try to find a marketing channel that the least amount of people are doing in your market. No matter what, if you stick to that rule of thumb, you'll have more success than your fellow investors. What jargon do you need to know? The glossary of real estate investing, if you're trying to do your first deal, would be ARV, after repair value. What is a home worth after a flipper is going to fix it up? You need to know what assigning means. And assigning means you are taking your rights to purchase a property that you have laid out in a purchase contract, and you are assigning it to someone else. Just like a consignment shop, right? Where you give them jewelry and they sell it on your behalf. It's kind of the same thing. You need to know what assignment contract is. An assignment contract is a contract that the wholesaler has with the buyer, that you're assigning the property to them. It lays out the transfer of ownership and how much the wholesaler is going to get paid. That is like return ROI, return on investment. Bandit signs. Bandit signs are the signs that say we buy houses that people staple to telephone poles. Cold calling is literally, it's a sales term. You're just calling people out of the blue, calling them cold, right? They've never heard from you. They don't know who you are. It's the hardest way to talk to somebody, but that is what cold calling is. What happens after I establish contact with the homeowner? Right. So after you talk to them on the phone, feel it out, you determine if it's a deal or not. Then oftentimes, depending on your business model, you're going to go meet them in person. You're going to go look through the property. You're going to build a relationship with them. You're going to feel them out, see if they're easy to work with, see if they're really motivated, if the stuff they told you on the phone was accurate and true, and they're going to decide if they like you and if they trust you or not. And then you're going to look at the property and you're going to estimate the pairs. But before you get to the property, you should already know kind of what price you need it at. You should already have an idea of, hey, look, if the home is in this condition, I'm going to offer this. If it's in a better condition, I'm going to offer that. That's the next step, going on the appointment. Do you need a special license to wholesale? No, but one day I wouldn't be surprised if we did. Now, there are regulations coming up in different markets, like Philadelphia and in Illinois, that are starting to require a special type of license. So I could see more regulations regulations coming down the line for sure. But as of now, in most markets, you do not need a special license to wholesale. As long as you're 18 years old and can legally purchase a property, you can wholesale. What is an off-market deal? Well, off-market is compared to on-market. On-market means it's on the MLS. MLS is a multiple listing service. It's another jargon term there. These are properties that are listed with an agent. All the agents in different markets, they all have this multiple listing service. It's a database that they all share. They can see each other's properties, and when you sign a listing contract with an agent, it becomes an on-market deal. Off-market means it's not listed with an agent currently. How do you know how much you should be selling a property for? Well, this is a great question. If you're wholesaling, how much do you price it out for the buyer? It's going to depend, and this is going to take experience, and oftentimes you may be putting it too low, but the best way to find out really is to get as many eyeballs on the property as possible. If you price it too high and you put it out to your buyers, you're not going to get anyone who's interested. And that in of itself is feedback. If no one's interested in your deal, it's not a good deal. The price is too high. So if you underbid it, then you're going to get a ton of buyers on the property and they bid themselves up. So let's say if you're asking $150,000 for a deal, you get 20 buyers who say, I will give you that price today, sign a contract with me. You say, oh, okay, here's what we're doing. In 3 days, you're going to give me the highest and best, and that's what you're going to take. And that way, the buyers who really want the deal, the market's going to tell you what the best price is. So oftentimes, the more buyers you can get looking at a property, you're going to get close to the maximum amount you possibly could. Do you need an LLC? Eventually, you should have one for tax purposes, but to legally, no. To do one deal, you can put your name on the contract. You don't need an LLC. How do you avoid getting cut out of a deal? This is a good question. You can double close on the property. This is the most surefire way. Double closing means that you use another jargon term here. Double closing means at the closing table, you buy the property, so you take title to the property, but immediately sell to someone else. So when you're assigning the property, you are not actually taking title to it. You're transferring ownership. But by double closing on it, you actually own the property for, a very short period of time, like an hour often or something like that. So that way you're keeping the two transactions separate. So the seller only knows what price you agree to with the seller, right? And the buyer only knows the price that they agree to. So this way you can hide any type of wholesale fee. That's the most common way, and the buyer never talks to the seller. It's two different transactions. That's the most common way to avoid. But again, if you're honest with the seller up front and you tell the buyer, how it is, hey, if you're going to work with me, here's how you're going to have to interact and what to say and how to handle themselves, then you won't have any issues. How do real estate agents play into wholesaling? This is kind of a big question. Real estate agents are competitors to wholesaling. You don't actually need an agent at all. Like most of the wholesale deals that I've done don't involve an agent. When it does involve an agent, it's usually a buyer's agent. So the investor is being represented by an agent and you're just working with the agent, and the agent's negotiating on behalf of the investor versus you talking to the investor directly. You can do deals with agents who are the listing agents who are working with sellers. I mean, that's another way to do it. That's a whole different topic for another video. I think Lily Thompson and Jerry Norton and probably Alex Martinez, Real Estate Skills, they all talk about that method. You can go check out their YouTube videos. Can you wholesale without any special software? Yeah, you literally just need a purchase contract and a piece of paper, and that's it. How do you put a house under contract? It's literally a purchase contract. Mine that I use is only 2 pages, and you get the seller to sign it, and then you sign it, and you have the contract, and that's it. How do you find a mentor? This is a good question. The mentor, I would go to your local real estate investment association, check out local Facebook groups, and find someone local in your market. I think local is the most important thing because they know the local laws and the market to help you. And just ask around. The most important thing is you need to be clear on what value you can provide to them. Whether it's your time, you're working for free, you're willing to put up money for marketing, whatever it is, don't just ask for something with nothing in return. Offer to help them in some way. What is the inspection process for virtual wholesaling? Good question. Inspection process is difficult, but the way I've done it with virtual wholesaling is now, especially after COVID, homeowners are willing to send you pictures of the property themselves. So you don't even have to go into the property, get the property under contract, and then the homeowners will send you photos. If you're waiting for the homeowner to send you photos before you get the homeowner contract, it could take forever, and they're not incentivized to do so. But once you have that contract, then things get more serious. Then the homeowner is more likely to help you out. So get photos then of the property, and then whichever buyers you're working with, have the buyers walk through the property. How do you wholesale land? Land is the easiest thing to wholesale. People don't focus on land enough because there's literally no property inspection because there's no property. So it's the same way you sign a contract just like you would do a wholesale property, but it's just simpler. A lot of investors still buy land. How do I make my contract legal? Do you need a lawyer? Your contract is legal once you sign it. Things start getting serious when you take your contract and you give it to a lawyer or a title company. Then they start doing the paperwork and they start putting the time to do the title search on it. But that's it. It's legal once you sign it. Is it worth it to build a cash buyers list? Yes, especially if you're getting started and you don't have any money to do deals. Build as big a cash buyers list as you possibly can. That will help you JV with wholesalers easier, and that is the best way to get started with no money in wholesaling. So build a huge buyers list, and especially if you're looking for a mentor, that's another great way to do it, and you'll learn the market better. wholesaler. So there's a lot of benefits to building a cash buyers list. What is the best marketing channel? There is no best marketing channel. Sorry. Yeah, I wish there was one. All of them work. It depends on the competition in your market. It depends on how good you are at them and what you like to do. I would say pick one and go all in on it for 6 months before you decide to pivot to something else. How do you build a cash buyers list? Building a cash buyers list is free. You can go on Google and start typing in things like sell my house fast or property buyers or cash house buyers. Start getting the names and email addresses and phone numbers of all those companies. Go to the first 10 pages of Google, get all those. Go on Craigslist, same thing. Look for the real estate for sale, section, and just all the people. You can just type in wholesale, you can type in TLC, fixer upper, and all those ads are going to be real estate investors. Call all the bandit signs in your area, go to the local RIAs, go to Facebook groups. There's a whole bunch of ways you can do it to build probably 300 people in a week. Wouldn't be that hard. What's the deal with the do not call list? The do not call list is a way to protect anyone with a phone from getting spam calls and telemarketed. So if someone's on the do not call list, you can actually get fined for calling them. So if someone tells you to stop calling them, don't ever call them again. They could sue you. You could definitely lose money. It does happen for sure. So it's important to keep track of people that tell you they don't want to be called anymore so that you can make sure to remove them from any future lists that you pull. What is your follow-up procedure? Follow-up procedure, I would say if you never get a hold of them, call them every single day until they either get back to you or they tell you to F off. Every single day if you never got a hold of them. Otherwise, give them a call every single month. And I would say also if you have some type of automated text or email system, also do that once a month as well. So call once a month, email once a month, text once a month. You're kind of hitting them up almost every other week. So I would do that at least for the first 3 months. And then after that, maybe just, call them once every other month and kind of slow down. You don't want to be too aggressive or you're going to piss them off. So I'd say start being, once a week or once every other week in the beginning. And then after 3-4 months, you kind of taper off a little bit indefinitely. So you never stop doing it. You reach out to them forever until they tell you they're going to do a deal with you or they tell you to F off. That's it. What were your early mistakes? Okay, early mistakes, spending too much money for me, understanding my cash flow, not appreciating, assume every deal is going to fall apart until you actually get paid, right? That's the way I found at least to not get stressed out in the business. I would say focusing on building a better buyers list in the beginning is important and focusing on one marketing channel, I think is the biggest thing. If a lot of people, especially me in the beginning, they're doing too many things and they just end up not doing any of them really that well. So focus on one and do it very well because again, they all work. Not having a non-refundable deposit for my buyers. So the first contract I ever signed with the seller, I ended up underestimating the repairs and so did the buyer. And I didn't require any type of non-refundable deposit from the buyer. So, we were like 2-3 weeks into it. The buyer ended up backing out because they realized they did their numbers wrong. And I ended up getting kind of screwed and I had to back out of the deal and the deal fell apart. So I would say if I had a non-refundable deposit with the buyer, they probably never would have signed the contract in the first place and I could have found someone else, probably could have saved the deal. So get a non-refundable deposit from your buyers, have that listed in your assignment contract. When do you quit your day job? I cannot answer this one for you. This is a challenging thing. Again, wholesaling income is inconsistent, so appreciate that. I would not quit your day job if you can help it. For me, I'm more of a outsource guy. I will outsource before I quit my job. So I would say, until you're making at least your job's income consistently for a year, I wouldn't quit your job. And again, don't quit your job. If anything, if you're making a good amount of money wholesaling, use your job's income for marketing to grow your wholesaling business. You can probably grow your business faster by working at a job and using that income as marketing versus not having the job at all. So for me, whichever way you slice it, you shouldn't quit your job until you're doing, at least what you're making in your job over the course of an entire year, if not double what you're making in your job. The best tools for wholesaling, I like using Slack. This is just a small business thing to communicate with my team. I don't like using email at all, so I like Slack. PropStream is very common to use. I like Google Ads as a marketing channel. If you see my other videos, I have a big agency I run. We use Zillow for comping properties. MailChimp I use for email blasts. CallFire I use for text blasts. CallRail is good for phone number management and phone call tracking. Yeah, Google Voice I use as well. DocuSign and Adobe Reader, I guess. How do you find investor-friendly title companies? Honestly, it can be challenging depending on the market you're in. Just talk to other investors and see who they use. How do you get around showing proof of funds when it's requested by a seller or an agent? Well, this is kind of a controversial one. I think you shouldn't be able to get around proof of funds. If they're asking you, then, I guess you can. There are companies out there that can provide you with a proof of funds letter for a paid fee. I think that, can go on the line of fraudulent. Depends who you ask, but I would say if you're getting asked a proof of funds letter, then the seller is going to be very serious. They're doing it because they want to know you're legit. They need a buyer who can close. So if that's the case, instead of just putting under contract without knowing what you're going to do, talk to some buyers, see if you can find, one trusted buyer who's willing to go on it with you. So don't blast it out, and then work with that one person who is going to close on it, who is committed to the right price, and they can provide you the proof of funds that way. That's the way I would do it. And finally, how do you deal with burnout? burnout is a tricky one. This business can be lonely and it can be stressful with the income being inconsistent, every single month. So yeah, I would say make time for hobbies. Don't sit at home at the computer all day. Working from home is great, but it can get lonely. So get outside, enjoy the process, enjoy meeting with sellers, enjoy talking to them, have fun with it. And yeah, hire people that you like. Virtual assistants are great. I hire virtual assistants that I like working with. I enjoy talking to them. I work with buyers that I enjoy doing it. So I'd say work with people you enjoy and also learn as much as you possibly can, because the things that burn you out often are going to be the day-to-day stress. So the more that you can grow your business and the more that you can outsource the things that you don't like to do, the less burned out and the more you're going to feel. It is tough early on, but the more you grow, the more options that you'll have. And just keep in mind, try to outsource the things that you don't like to do and keep doing the things that you don't like to do. And over time, you will figure it out and start to have more self-awareness about what those things are. That's it.